Lazarini in the paper is very strong. It looks like the Armenians have steppe ancestry. The early people in Armenia, they might not have been Armenians themselves. Whatever. Like it's post-Urartu, right? The new Indo-Europeans show up in the region of southern Caucasus, eastern Anatolia, and they have steppe-type ancestry. They have eastern hunter-gatherer ancestry. That ancestry drops over time from the late Bronze Age. That's fine. I think that what's happening here is like this is a highly dense zone. There's that mixture, and so the steppe ancestry is being diffused everywhere. In any case, these people, they have R1b lineages that are clearly Yamnaya. And the Yamnaya have a very distinct R1b lineage that's different than the common one in Western Europe that's spread with the bell beakers. So it looks like these are not from corded ware people. So the corded ware is the branch that went right to the north, and it spread all into Europe, into Western Europe, Northern Europe, and then an eastern branch went into the Indian subcontinent and Iran and Central Asia, right? They eventually overwhelmed the Tokharians, so the southern part of Xinjiang was actually Iranian-speaking languages, like the Sakha language and whatnot. But in Armenia, it looks like they were direct migrants from the Yamnaya zone of the Pontic steppe. They went over the Caucasus, just like the Scythians would later. And so they're definitely not Anatolian. They have the Eastern hunter-gatherer ancestry. Some of this seems to have bled into northwest Iran, modern-day Iranian Azerbaijan. These people did not have R1A. They did not have globular amphora farmer ancestry, which would be a hallmark of corded ware. So definitely the earliest Indo-Europeans in Iran might have been Armenians and their relatives. Who knows? Depends on if you believe that the Proto-Indo-Europeans were in northern Iran, and they could have been. I'll talk about it at the end. In Anatolia itself, there's arguments about whether the Hittite language and the Anatolian languages might have been from the Balkans. The main argument that Lazaridis et al. Give, mostly in the Genetic History of the Southern Art paper itself, is that there's no Balkan hunter-gatherer ancestry in Armenia. So all the gene flow, or not Armenia, Anatolia, apologies there. All the gene flow, or the vast majority of the gene flow, seems to have gone from Anatolia outward, right? And it went into the Aegean, and it went into Sicily and as far as Spain, across the Mediterranean in a straight shot around 5,000 years ago. So, I actually talked a little bit about this in my Substack post on Greece recently. You guys can listen to read those, but basically there seems to be a pulse migration from eastern Anatolia about 5,000 years ago associated with the rise of Bronze Age and metallurgy into the Aegean, and it's also associated with haplogroup J2. So the people in the Aegean were early European farmers, Western Anatolian descended people. And then this Eastern Anatolian ancestry, Eastern Anatolian Caucasus-type ancestry starts spreading, Iranian starts spreading westward, right? More than 5,000 years ago in Anatolia, and then eventually it hits the Aegean, overwhelms Greece, and then it goes into Sicily, southern Italy, and as far as Spain. We don't really know what's going on here and who these people are. We don't have writing. To my knowledge, the archaeologists were not super clued in on what was going on here beyond Greece, but it looks like it was like a major cultural group with some sort of advanced toolkit that allowed them to dominate other groups that were more numerous than them. Because they didn't genetically overwhelm them, but they contributed like 20-30% of their ancestry to places like Greece, right? So maybe the Minoan civilization was from them. What this and I had assumed that they were not Indo-European. What this paper might suggest is maybe they were Anatolian. I don't think he went into it. I don't recall reading that, but the timing seems a little suspicious. So it could be that people in Greece were speaking, and including the Minoans, are speaking an archaic, or not archaic, but like a very, very distant form of Indo-European, more closely related to probably Lycian or something in Western Anatolia. And then eventually the Greek language shows up, which replaces the indigenous languages, whether they were not Indo-European. I think some of them were probably still not Indo-European, or like the Anatolian related languages. And so the Greeks show up with some steppe ancestry. Okay, so there are individuals with some steppe ancestry that show up in northern Greece about 4,000 years ago. Now, this is different than Italy or Spain, where it seems to have happened earlier, and the people that show up were bell beaker culture. What Lazaridis et al. Claim is that is not true in Greece. What's happening in Greece is there are people that are coming in from the Balkans. They're a direct Yamnaya group, and some of them are bringing their R1b, their distinct R1b Y chromosomal lineage. Right? So the Greeks are distinct. In the Greeks and perhaps the Albanians, these Illyrian people, these Paleo-Balkan, Indo-European languages, they might be a separate branch, just like Armenian, of Indo-European from all the others in Europe that originally go back to the fusion between corded ware, or excuse me, fusion between Yamnaya and globular amphora that gave rise to corded ware. Okay, so like painting a picture here, you see all of Europe except for maybe the Basque because they're not Indo-European speaking. Post-corded ware, except for the Balkans and Greece, which is settled by quote unquote pure Yamnaya that eventually mix with the indigenous populations of hunter-gatherers. There's still some residual hunter-gatherers and Neolithic farmers in the Balkans. And they start mixing pretty early on in the Balkans proper. They don't get into the Aegean and Greece until around 2000 BC. And I think, that's because of the cultural complexity of that region. And there are probably, we know that there were political configurations there that they'll probably be able to resist any migrations, right? Armenia is, again, distinct. There are some arguments that Greek and Armenian form a clade. It's very, very speculative, but I just want to put it out there. And also, David Anthony has told me some of the practices of the Mycenaeans seem very similar to the Indo-Iranians in particular. Why? Well, all these people had contacts with each other. It's mentioned in passing in this paper, but I think there's a future paper that'll talk about it more. Indo-Iranian in particular has reciprocal vocabulary exchange with Uralic languages that is not common to any other Indo-European languages, which is super weird, right? Looking at where Indo-Iranian is today. But if you read Saag al, S-A-A-G, you will see that they're the Indo-European language group that's right to the south of where the Finnic people would historically have been. And I think the Finnish word for slave, like Finnish people like to tell me that, at least Finnish nerds, is derived from the word Aryan. So they were obviously engaging in conflict with these early Indo-Iranians, and there was Uralic language, influence in Indo-Iranian, right? And so my point there is all these different groups are interacting and exchanging, vocabulary, customs, and all these other things. That doesn't necessarily mean they're related to each other, So, people in Germany and southern Germany are Catholic, and people in Italy are Catholic, and it's like the spread of this like Catholic religion, and there's a German Catholic Pope, there's Italian popes, Italian Argentine Pope. Like it's complicated, but prehistoric people were probably somewhat similar in terms of having, they probably like mixed their gods in various ways, and we don't want to oversimplify it, right? So I want to get to like what's going on with the Caucasus influence on the Pontic steppe, because I think that's where the rub is. I know a lot of people are angry about it. They're just angry about it because they want Indo-European languages to be from Europe. I'm just going to be honest. I don't really care. I don't think the answer is here yet necessarily, but it's an okay answer. I don't really care where they're located, whether it's north or south of the Caucasus. Who cares, right? It's just a label on a map. But in any case, about I think like 5,000 BC, like 7,000 years ago, there was a pulse of Caucasus hunter-gatherer ancestry that shows up on the Pontic steppe. And so these eastern hunter-gatherers, they change genetically, and they become mixed. And this was known. Later, there is ancestry that's different, okay? And what Lazaridis et al. Are finding is that it's a very small but not a very detectable mix of Levantine and Anatolian ancestry. And it shows up around 3000 BC, around there, okay? This is a small percentage, like 5% or so. And basically, they say that this explains the fact that the early Yamnaya had some European farmer-like traits. And so, not traits, but like genetic signatures. It had been thought that perhaps that came from interaction with the European farmers to their west. Lazaridis et al. Argue, like, no, what really is happening here is there's Anatolian farmer ancestry that's related to the European farmers that's coming up through the Caucasus. And they say that it can't be the same as the European farmers, because the European farmers do not have the Levantine ancestry. The Levantine ancestry, so it's from post-Natufian cultures in Syria, is because Anatolia itself, and this is the third paper, which I'm not going to really get into, and it was hit by several migrations and admixtures, right? After the early European farmers left off. So I don't want to get into the statistical details, but they basically calculate that this last wave of out of the Caucasus, probably 25% or so of the ancestry. It's a mix of Levantine, Anatolian farmer, a minority ancestry, as well as more Caucasus farmer. So the Caucasus farmer proportion goes up. I mean, I think it's not in this paper, but I'm pretty sure that Lazaridis is saying this partly because, I don't know for sure, but there's going to be another paper with a lot of Yamnaya samples. And from everything that I know, those Yamnaya samples do show the same progression of or pre-Yamnaya, whatever, Pontic zone, increased Caucasus hunter-gatherer admixture over the time transect, over thousands of years, right? And so there's two waves. There's an earlier wave and there's a later wave. So this later wave is from the south, probably the Caucasus region, maybe south and east of it. Some people are saying, oh, well, some samples in northwest Iran and the northern Zagros are very similar. And then it could be eastern Anatolia as well. Classical Armenia, not the modern Little Republic, but we're talking the eastern, maybe fifth of Anatolia, north of Kurdistan, north of the Asarian zone. So they're not totally sure, but it's somewhere east of central Anatolia, probably west of eastern Iran, south of the Kuban steppe. I think that's the steppe between the Caspian and the Black Sea, and then obviously north of Mesopotamia, right? So it's in that kind of square zone. And they think that there's gene flow from the north out of here, and that gene flow is very similar to the gene flow that's going into the Anatolia. And so this explains why you could have Indo-European on the north and the south part of the Black Sea, despite this very important genetic difference. I think the big argument that people are making is it could have been some sort of elite. There's other ones, and I'm sure some of your questioners will bring it up. I don't know. I haven't thought about all the details because I'm not super invested in this theory. I think it's an interesting theory. I need to think about it in more detail. I need to reanalyze some of the samples. There's a lot of moving parts in Yosef and his colleagues' analyses. But it could be that there was an elite group of Indo-Europeans that spread the language in Anatolia that had very little genetic impact, right? So I have written on my Substack about the Magyars. They do have a detectable effect in Hungary, but it's very, very small, and you need very, very powerful methods. Historically, though, we know that the conquerors, the Magyar elite from 1,000 years ago, were very, very influenced by Central Asian ancestry. There were Ugric people from the South Urals. They're very genetically distinct. But over time, their genetic signature disappeared, but their cultural influence remained in the Magyar language. But why they disappear, my hypothesis is, if you look at the history of the period, these elite Magyar groups, the conquerors, the conquest elite, they were the fighters, and so they fought the Mongols, and they fought the Ottomans, and the Magyar nobility, the flower of the Magyar nobility, was basically destroyed at the Battle of Mohawks, and a lot of the Hungarian nobility of the Renaissance and early modern period, they come from elsewhere. They're descendants of Romanians and Germans and other groups. That's historically attested. So I think that's what we know happened in Hungary. Perhaps something like that could have happened in Anatolia. We see, low fractions in many different places, and some sort of language change. Austronesian languages are dominant around the rim of Papua New Guinea, but Austronesian ancestry is pretty low. There is some there, but it's pretty low. But the language was still culturally influential, so perhaps the Indo-European languages were influential. If I had to bet, you're going to be asking me if I had to bet. I'm kind of skeptical of this because they're very diverse, so that indicates internal structure. If it was some sort of elite spread, I think it would be a uniform language, a uniform lingua franca, and it's just this whole area of Anatolia was pretty dense, pretty civilized early on. Sargon of Akkad, the first emperor, the world history 4,300 years ago campaigned in central Anatolia, it seems like, according to both later Hittite legends and Akkadian records. So I have a hard time seeing how they would culturally overwhelm this group. So Mesopotamia was conquered multiple times by barbarians, and the indigenous culture and language still persisted, Semitic language at least, like the Gutians and the Kassites and all these groups. So I don't see why Anatolia would be that different, but I don't know. It's something that I need to think on. Some people, Indian people, so I would suggest you guys, are asking, could this mean that the early Indus Valley people, some of them could speak in Indo-European languages, maybe relate to Anatolian? Haplogroup J2 is associated with westward spread about 5,000 years ago. J2 is found in the IVC. It's very common in the Indian subcontinent among Dravidian-speaking elites, for example, like people of the, Reddy caste in Andhra Pradesh, right? And also like a lot of Gujus and in Sindh in particular. So yeah, I think that's plausible. The main thing that I would say is Narasimhan Adal are claiming that the Iranian-like, and I'll say Iranian-like, ancestry that contributed to the IVC in eastern Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan diverged from the ancestry in the Zagros, which is the Garej North sample that is very similar to the Caucasus hunter-gatherers. It diverged like 13,000 years ago or something, like at the end of the last ice age. This seems a little too early. And also, I think basically the Western Zagros samples, they have more Anatolian admixture. They have admixture with Anatolian and other groups that are closer to them that the Iranian-like ancestry of the Indians did not have. Okay, so I would say probably no to the Indo-Anatolian, in terms of early migration, but it's still possible. It's not crazy. It's plausible. How I have to think about how it would work out. It still is true though that the Indo-Aryan language is clearly a corded ware language. Like this is like too much. The genetic evidence is like just overwhelming at this point. Like the earliest ancient DNA R1A Z93, which is the Indo-Iranian lineage of R1A, is found in the Fatyanovo culture 4,500 years ago, right? So that's that. I want to talk a little bit about Greece. I've been going for an hour, but I want to talk a little bit about Greece because there's a lot of work here. So a huge Mycenaean sample, right? So Mycenaeans, between 2000 and 1200 BC, they have a civilization. After 1450, they overwhelmed the Minoans. Again, read my Greece Substack, it's there. But so what's going on with the Mycenaeans is that Lazarides et al. Shows that they have, it's clearly they have northern influence after 2000 BC. It's low, it's 10 to 15%, right? This is not like Italy or Spain even. It's more like Indian. It's more like Indian, I would say. Even less than India, at least northwestern. Northwestern and northern and western Gangetic plains, actually. These Mycenaean samples have very little steppe ancestry compared to people to their western north. Okay, compared to what you would naively expect 20, 30 years ago, I think it's actually a significant amount. So if you read Robert Drew's books about the arrival of the charioteers and stuff like that, it's just like, that should be like a tiny number. Right? But one thing that's interesting here is that you see there's no population stratification of steppe ancestry, and the samples are pretty big. So some researchers have complained, oh well, ancient DNA is all these elite Kurgan burials. These are not like regular people. Well, they had a lot of regular people. They had a lot of elite people, and it turns out that there's no rhyme or reason. There's like the Griffin warrior at Pylos, Nestor's Pylos, had no steppe ancestry. And then there's like peasants, clearly peasants or slaves with a lot of steppe ancestry. So it's just all over the place. What does that indicate? It just indicates that it's got normal social mobility, and these steppe people came in, or the steppe descended, because they might have been from the Balkans and not directly from the Pontic steppe at this point for many, many centuries. They came in and they integrated themselves into the Aegean world. Now, was the Aegean world pre-Indo-European or was it Anatolian speaking at this point? Again, like that's something that's now looming. as a question. Were the Minoans speaking a language related to the language of the Hittites or not? I don't know. We don't know because we haven't translated linear A, although some people claim that they have. I have to look at that. In any case, yeah, so, but the Mycenaeans, it's pretty interesting. I have said this in public elsewhere. These data, along with plenty of others, have convinced me that India's caste system is definitely not Indo-European. It's not due to the Indo-Aryans. It's pre-existent. The Jati system probably, if I had to bet, is probably due to the Indus Valley civilization, because no other Indo-European population has this sort of stratification. There are castes, even among, like, say, the Saxons, like, the tripartite division. It's there. It's there in a lot of Indo-European people. The Iranians had it as well, in terms of, like, the priests, warriors, and farmers, right? But it's not like the Indian subcontinent where there's, like, really rigid endogamy for many, many centuries, and you can, like, look at people today and, like, figure out where they are from and what their caste is. Obviously, the Mycenaeans didn't have that, right? It was already scrambled by the Mycenaean period. And I've never seen that in any of the other ancient DNA everywhere else. So therefore, I am very, very convinced now that the Indo-Iranians did not introduce and impose the caste system in the Indian subcontinent. It's something they actually adopted that was already there. And I think that's clearly evident in the fact that half of Brahmins in, like, many Brahmin castes are not R1A, which is the Sakasha lineage. They're often J2. Or R2 or something else, something found in the Indus Valley civilization. So, indigenous elites were themselves integrated into the new system. And I think they brought a lot of their culture with them. So with that, I will set that aside and move on to another thing in the Greek paper, the Mycenaean paper, that's interesting. I don't know why this was in the Mycenaean paper, actually, I do know why. So I've talked about this extensively over the years, and again, people have been, like, confused and angered for various reasons. In Homer's Odyssey, in the Odyssey and the Iliad, the heroes are described basically, a huge number of them are described as blonde or red hair, so bright hair, Xanthos, right? So Achilles, Menelaus, I think Idomeneus is red haired, king of Idomeneus of Caucasus. I think Odysseus is described as maybe blonde but with a dark beard, whatever. Aphrodite also, goddesses. Aphrodite is blonde. I believe Athena is gray-eyed. So it was from this that a lot of Northern European classicists were assuming that, the ancient Greeks were actually like a Nordic people, and they've been genetically and racially debased, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so Yosef, who himself is Greek, just put that out there, just looked at the data and did the prediction. It's like, all these Mycenaeans look just like modern Greeks. They're dark, Mediterranean people. In fact, if you look at the data, it looks like Northern European ancestry has gone up in Greece because of the Slavic migrations after the rebellion of Phocas in 602 AD. Okay, but he didn't stop at Greeks. He actually looked at a lot of these populations, and look, I've written about this, and this has again caused a lot of anger because there's a lot of weirdos out there, but it's clear that the Yamnaya would be considered pretty dark. Okay, let's just say that after 9/11, Yamnaya people, men, would go through extensive screening and vetting, and they might be sent to a special room. I mean, just like straight up. Some of them would look like swarthy white people, but some of them would definitely look Iranian or subcontinental. It's just, like, really obvious when you look at the Yamnaya samples. It's a little different with the later samples. But what Yosef was finding is the fraction of people that have pale skin, blue eyes, and light hair are increasing in his European ancient DNA samples over time. So the original Indo-European speakers in Europe were actually not that Nordic looking at all. But they became that way. Another thing he points out is that the Yamnaya are relatively dark. The corded ware are paler, right to their east. And so they're like 70% steppe, 30% farmer. And then the bell beakers to their west start to get looking like what we would think of Northern Europeans. So some of the British samples in particular look pigmented like modern British people, maybe a little paler because there was later migration, 1000 BC, Urnfeld people. But in any case, So he points out here that the bell beakers have less steppe than the corded ware, who have less steppe, obviously, than the Yamnaya by definition. So some of these paler, quote, paler genes are coming in through European farmers, although they themselves on these predictors don't come out as very pale either. Now, there are a few blonde people, there are a lot of blue-eyed people among the hunter-gatherers, as most of you know, but there are also a few blonde, blue-eyed people that show up in Scandinavia pretty early among the Motala hunter-gatherers. I think that what's going on here is there are some environmental factors that are shaping this phenotype, this depigmentation, and it got really, really strong relatively recently, but it has always been present. And so there's a paper that came out today. So I mentioned Narasimhan. He is now at University of Texas, and he is the last author on a paper called 1,000 Ancient Genomes, Uncover 10,000 Years of Natural Selection in Europe. A lot of the stuff that you would expect. Lactase persistence is really recent selection, actually. It's post-Bronze Age, Iron Age to historical period, like the last 2,000 years. There's a lot of immune stuff. There's stuff with diet. So, I'm not going to get into this because it's not ancestry related, but there's a lot of stuff with diseases that we have today that seem to be under positive selection. So like cardiomyopathy, some sorts of inflammatory and autoimmune diseases are under positive selection. Why? The hypothesis presented in the preprint is basically like, okay, like you want a strong inflammatory response when there's a lot of disease around, right? And lactase persistence under selection, I think he said there's another one, not C. There seemed to be something going on with vitamin D synthesis and other sorts of things that are happening in Northern Europe that's driving a lot of the recent selection. Selection's recent. It's not old. Okay, it's really recent. So like people during the Roman period, one, they probably looked somewhat different, a little bit different in Northern Europe. Not totally. Like, come on. You could read Tacitus. I mean, he says that all the Germans are blonde or red-haired and blue-eyed, which that's like literally wrong because we have ancient DNA. But compared to Italians, they were. And so, people make a perception based on that. But I've looked at the data, and it's quite clear that Europeans have gotten more blue-eyed over the last 2,000 to 3,000 years. Okay? And so this new paper confirms that with signature selection on genes that some of you might recognize, like SLC24A5, that's old, but SLC45A2, which is the main pigmentation gene that really differentiates Europeans from non-European, West Asians and subcontinentals, that's been under selection during the historical period. It has gone up to, like, in Northern Europe, it's like at 97%, 98%. In Spain, it goes down to like 85. I think in Sardinia, it's like 75. In Italy, mainland Italy, it's like 90, right? So this gene, the derived variant, has been going up in frequency over the last 4,000 years, and it definitely makes you paler. In like places like Poland, if you have the ancestral variant of this, which is overwhelming in the rest of the world outside of Europe, your probability of having olive skin goes way, way, way up. Because there's still people who have the ancestral variant, even in Northern Europe, but it's a very small number, and a lot of those people have olive skin. So my point here is the very, very like fair, like rosy-cheeked appearance of Nordic people. There are some people during the Bronze Age, like some of the bell beakers look like they might have fit into that. There were people like that in the Baltic during the Bronze Age, but the overwhelming frequency of this sort of appearance is pretty recent, like probably the Common Era. And I mean, it's quite clear, I think, from some of the evidence in the selection papers that these sweeps are still occurring, at least like into the window of statistical power of detecting a really recent sweep. Like within the last couple of centuries, it might have occurred. Now, I think in the modern era, everything has changed, okay? So we don't need to talk about that. But whatever forces were pushing selection were happening probably into the early modern period when most people were peasants. I think it had to do with agriculture. It had to do with disease. It had to do with like nutrient deficiencies, all these usual things. That seems the most plausible. I know some of you have read stuff about sexual selection, and that's fine, but I mean, we have the data. We can test it now. Reproductive variance should change a certain amount based on sex and other things. We can test it. So, but I don't really think that that's probably what's going on because it seems very geographically localized, and it seems to have happened independently. And also, although East Asians are not blonde, their skin has gotten depigmented over the last 10,000 years as well. And there's some influence, some evidence for the same thing in the Khoisan people who have SLC24A5 that was mediated from West Eurasians through Nilotic people thousands of years ago, and also in Ethiopia and the Indian subcontinent. So there's some reason it pays to be lighter, and who knows? Yeah, it's different in Sudan where there's the opposite effect. But in any case, that was a big part of a lot of phenotypic stuff in Yosef's paper. And if you want like phenotypic stuff in natural selection, check out Bagish's paper in Razib et al. 1,000 ancient genomes uncover 10,000 years of natural selection in Europe. Okay, I think I've covered most of the salient things. So, okay, like what's the big takeaway? The big takeaway is all the Indo-European peoples, like 99% of them, have this steppe component, but 1% don't. But that 1% is a pretty big deal because it's the oldest written language in Indo-European. It's the Hittite. Excuse me. It's the Hittite written language, right? So that's a big deal. So what Yosef was looking for, he's looking for like a common genetic element to all the Indo-Europeans. And that common genetic element is this mix of Caucasus hunter-gatherer with Levantine hunter-gatherer, and Anatolian hunter-gatherer. Like eventually they became farmers, right? But whatever. Let's just go with the hunter-gatherer, thing. So that's what he's trying to find there. But as I'm recording this, there are a lot of skeptics who are reanalyzing the data, and they're very, very skeptical. Again, I don't really understand the vehemence about some of the skepticism because most of the action still comes out of the corded ware complex, right? As it expands. I mean, corded ware is responsible for Andronovo. It's responsible for bell beaker. That's most of the action right there. Indian subcontinent, Iran, Northern Europe, Western Europe. Yeah, there's like, the Balkans, Anatolia, which no longer Indo-European, wasn't Anatolian, it was Greek for a while, but Greek and Armenian, and then you have Armenian, right? And then Tocharian, which went extinct. So, I was talking to a historian. I was actually like having a chat with a historical linguist in Copenhagen, and he's like, well, I mean, it doesn't change too many things for me, for him, because he studies, most of the Indo-European languages, but most of them are from the corded ware horizon, right? So, who cares if they might originally have been from the Caucasus? I haven't gone in detail about like the issues with the Y chromosomes, but there's some evidence that the Y chromosomes from the Caucasus did not spread. That's female mediated, right? It's women. And so the argument is patriarchal societies, you speak the language of the men, et cetera, right? That's plausible to me, but I would suggest there is a lot of evidence that Austronesian languages spread into Melanesia, female mediated, through women, right? And in Japan, the haplogroup D associated with the Jomon is at 30%. Their genome-wide ancestry is probably like at 15%. So it looks like a disproportionate amount of mainland East Asian farmer ancestry that brought the Japonic languages was actually through women. So, if biology is the science of exceptions, history is the scholarship of mostly exceptions. So I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. I think that we should just have a good attitude about it. And, we live in incredible times. We have bitten of the apple, and, we are as gods to look into the past. I'm going to do some analysis myself this weekend with my own hands, and that's an incredible feeling, right? They release the data. It's all out there, and you can look at it yourself. Draw your own conclusions. Yosef and his colleagues, they're not infallible. They've said wrong things in the past, and they've changed, and they've updated. Some of you may wonder if they're ideologically motivated. I know the people who work in that lab. They're human beings, but wow, like they are scholars of the old school, and I really respect them. I respect their judgment. They are fallible. They do make mistakes, but they are trying to aim towards the truth, and they don't believe that they have their own truth. They believe the truth is out there, and they're trying to discover it and uncover it. And let's do that together, all of us, instead of getting angry and screaming, because I don't see what the point of that is. They're just wasting time. that we could use to understand more. So with that, that is my survey of the Southern Arc papers. They're really great papers. You should read them. Again, if you register for free on Science, you can read them. They will probably be put on the Reich Lab website soon as well. The papers are Genetic History of the Southern Arc, Genetic Probe into the Ancient Medieval History of Southern Europe and West Asia. The last paper, which I didn't talk about, and ancient DNA from Mesopotamia suggests distinct pre-pottery and pottery Neolithic migrations in Anatolia. So this is basically about like Anatolia, did not stay exactly the same after 10,000 years, after the farmers left for Europe. There's other stuff going on, and I think that's known. There's also stuff about the medieval period and the Roman period, how a lot of the Eastern people in Rome who are Greek speakers are probably Anatolian, but there's very little gene flow into Anatolia. I didn't want to get into that because I've already been talking an hour. So anyway, so thank you for listening to me. Again, I will be doing podcasts with other people who have other much more archaeologically informed opinions than me, or philological opinions than me on this Substack. So just keep your feeds fresh, and you may see more. But these are great papers, and I commend the Reich Lab and their collaborators all across the world, archaeologists who work so hard to excavate, dig this stuff up, the wet lab people that extract for the Petrus bone and whatnot, and then of course the statistical guys who do their magic and then release their code and their data for us to check them. So this is great. Hope you guys appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed my interpretation of these papers. All right, so I stopped the podcast. Okay, so I went for an hour and 8. So that's fine. I got some time for questions. Should I do club deck or? All right.
Should we open up the hand raising feature?
Yeah, open up the hand raising feature. Wait, how many people are on Twitter Spaces?
Okay, now.
All right, I'm going to start with Twitter Spaces first because there's more people on Twitter Spaces.
Okay.
All right, so requests. Okay, I will let Abel go first. Be concise, Abel. All right, question? Okay, wait, oh yeah, you got a speaker. That's Twitter Spaces buggy. Okay, question, Abel. All right, unmute yourself, Dr. Abel Lawrence. You can unmute. You're muted. Okay, can I? All right, go. Okay, shoot your question.
Yo, why is the dude not asking a question?
Wait. Why are you talking at me? Like, one, I know all of this, and two, I was very clear. Ask a question, don't lecture.
Wait, what happened? You can't hear him.
Yeah, no, that's not what this is for. That's not what this is for, okay? So I'm sorry. I know that, like, I've been friendly with you before, but I was very clear. Like, we're here for questions, okay? So I'm gonna go to Clubhouse. Okay, bring someone up. I don't know how Club Deck works. Can you? So bring someone up.
I'm using Club Deck too. I don't know how it works either. Let's see how you doing?
Can someone bring someone up? I don't.
Yeah. Can I ask my own question first?
Okay, you ask the question. Be quick.
Okay.
Razib Khan, I want to hear that.
What do you say about this depigmentation? Did it affect both hair and eyes? Was it stronger in Northern Europe? You see from the Erfurt samples to modern Ashkenazim and other populations. Just say something more about this. What can you say about it?
All right. So I'm going to answer this question real quickly because it's an easy answer. But I have to repeat the question for Twitter Spaces. So I'm going to do that right now. So Van Neumann is asking about depigmentation in Northern Europe. Does it affect hair, eyes, as well as skin? Does it affect the Erfurt Ashkenazi? So all the pigmentation genes are generally networked together. OCA2, HERC2, that's mostly the blue eye, affects 75% of the variants in Northern Europeans. That affects skin too. So a lot of them affect each other. Sometimes the statistical power doesn't detect the effects. But if you select for depigmentation on skin, you can cause other things as well. So it's tissue-specific gene expression is what it is. And yes, so selection on one can result in a correlated response on others. As far as the Ashkenazis, I think I saw that there was selection for pigmentation, but I'm not 100% sure. But that paper is coming out soon. Carmi's done some revisions, and the Erfurt paper will come out soon. Okay, I am now going to ask, I don't know, Jataka Tales. Okay, ask your question.
What? Who is that?
Jataka Tales, ask your question. You're on mute.
Who the hell is Jataka?
Okay, I see them up as speaker. All right, so this is why I use Clubhouse still. Sorry, Clubhouse. Having issues on Twitter Spaces.
Yeah, I don't even know how to use Twitter Spaces.
I can hear you guys. Oh, can you not hear me? Okay, I'm going to go back to Clubhouse, okay, because I can't, just wait. Okay, so I'm going back to Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces.
Let me see if I can get up there.
Adam K is up here. Adam, ask a question.
Thank you. From page 252 of the supplementary materials on the genetic history of the Southern Arc, it's claimed that the Natufian epiphyletic is not colloidal with the PPN farmers of the Levant, and that it can only be modeled with some North African input. Can you expand on this?
Yeah, that's, dude, so Adam K on Clubhouse is citing the supplements, page 256. That's awesome, dude. All you guys should read the supplements. They're really easy to get. So he's asking the Natufian farmers of the PP pre-Pottery Neolithic are not cladded with the pre-Pottery Neolithic Levant farmers that contribute to the Anatolians. And he basically says that they have ancestry from North Africa. That ancestry from North Africa is it's like the Terrafold sample. It's Iberia-Mauritian. It's really old. And my answer to Adam K is the modeling on that is whack. Okay. What I mean by that is sometimes you have this really clear and obvious model of how the populations came together, and sometimes you just have a bunch of different models that you can't really answer and resolve very well. Probably because either your model is you're missing samples, you're missing some deep insight that will resolve everything, and I think that's what's going on with a lot of this stuff about the North Africans and the Natufians. The different papers say different things about these North Africans, right? These ancient North African samples, and so I'm just not clear. These Iberia-Mauritians might be descended from Pleistocene West Asians that mixed with some Paleo West African, 1/3. There's all sorts of weird models that are coming out here.
I think that one's true.
Human populations are not obviously distinct in a clear way. They mix with each other. There's gene flow. I think a lot of geneticists overemphasize the clinality because they want to reject the idea of race because science confirms everything in their ideology. But there is gene flow, and we do overemphasize these clusters for verbal ease of exposition, right? So I just think that that result is not a crazy result. I don't necessarily believe that model. I have very weak confidence in any model that requires the Terrafold sample people, the Iberia-Mauritians, because I don't think we understand what those people are in the first place, and we don't have a good model for their origins. So if you don't have a good model for the origins of a given people, then I'm a little weirded out when those people are necessary to explain another population. Does that answer your question, Adam?
No.
I didn't answer your question.
Yes,
I just said that we don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, and so they opted not to include the North in the 5-point model that they're using. They don't include the North African sample, right? Okay, great, thank you.
All right, I'm going to go back to Twitter Spaces.
Struggle Spaces.
Uman. Okay, Uman on Twitter Spaces is going to ask a question. I'm going to repeat it. Uman, can you turn your mic off? Oh, there you go. It works. Okay. I'll repeat Uman's question. So I didn't talk about this part of the paper. There's a lot of stuff in the paper about Italy, Imperial Rome, Anatolian gene flow into Rome, and how it replaced the indigenous people. That's actually like totally correct, and it's in line with other work. What basically happened, and like, okay, sorry to reference my Substack, but I've actually written about this, March 2021. So basically, the cities of Rome was an imperial city. And the Roman Empire was a collection of cities. It was a coalition of cities. So the ancient classical world was a constellation of cities, of polises, and the rural areas were kind of neglected by the elites. Like the elites had lands in the rural areas that they collected rents from, but really the action was in the cities. And so elites moved into these cities. Imperial Rome obviously genetically transformed. And so the argument here is like, oh, well, Italians are totally different, blah, blah, blah. But what it turns out is these cities are also demographic sinks. And after the invasion of Belisarius and the Gothic Wars, Rome goes from 100 to 500,000 people, probably, to 10 to 50,000 people. Okay? And so where did everyone go? Well, they don't replace themselves, they die, and they're replaced by people coming from elsewhere. And so when the Roman system collapsed, all of these exotic Greek speakers and all these other people, like the Syrian popes of the 7th and 8th century, for example, like Sergius and stuff, right? Sergius. All of these people that are not native Italians, they did not leave descendants. So the modern Italian population, especially outside of Sicily, is not nearly as differentiated as these Roman samples from the city would tell you. And that's because I believe the cities just winked out of existence when the imperial system collapsed. So these Anatolians, they disappear. And what is modern Rome? Modern Rome are people that come from the rural areas. The people that come from the rural areas are much more likely to be descended from Iron Age Italians. And so the original Italians came back because there was a reservoir in the rural areas. Now, there are some effects of the empire on the margin, especially when you go further south and into Sicily. Also, southern Italy and Sicily were part of Magna Graecia, and so they were part of the broader Greek world, and so there's like a lot of confounds there. But did I answer your question, Uman? All right, so I'm going to go to I think James Cassell on Clubhouse. Yes. James, ask your question. I'm going to repeat it, and then I'll answer it.
No problem. I descend from RS 1855. I was wondering if you could tell me where my ancestry falls into this conversation.
Let's see. Okay, it's not really on point, but repeat it again, and I'll look at it really quick.
Okay.
What is it? RF?
RS, as in Sam, 1855.
Is that a haplogroup?
Yes. It's R1B1B 1A2 A1A1.
Oh yeah, that's a Western European one. So Sam is asking about his haplogroup. I think he's like telling me the Western European haplogroup, the dominant one. I don't know if it's the Bell-Beaker one, but it could be the brother clade to the Bell-Beaker one. So, all right.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna move him to the audience. Hey guys, can you just move just so that I can can you move people to the audience? All right, Yashu. Okay. We got let's see who's next. Jimmy the Otter. Okay, Jimmy, ask a question. Yeah, on Twitter, Jimmy the Otter is asking a question, and he's gonna be off. He's gonna be okay. Turn the mic on. Get off mute. All right, what's your question? What's your question?
I wonder what he said.
Yeah, all right, we're gonna go back to Clubhouse. There's just a lot of mentally ill people on Twitter. listen to people lecturing at me. Like, I'm tired. I'm answering questions. I'm not going to listen to you talk. Not interested in your opinions. No offense. Actually, offense intended. Okay, Yashu, go.
All right, my question is about the J1P58.
Oh, no, I'm not gonna answer. Yashu, I'm sorry. I'm like another room. I'm not gonna answer a question about haplogroups. Like, I'm gonna answer questions about what I talked about. I'm not like maybe I should start a consulting business for haplogroups, but like I can't.
Oh man, it kicked me down.
I mean, I think that was J2, by the way, and I think that's I'm gonna answer his question now because I think that was J2. And I think that that's associated with the Caucasus and Eastern Anatolia, spread into the Mediterranean, 3000 BC. So I answered your question, Yashu, but that's not like the point. Okay, next person
I got kicked out of that.
Spaces and
damn, I tried to ask about J1P58. I got kicked out.
Question, right? Otherwise, I'll block you.
Well, that went well. That went splendid. I said J1P58, boom, I got removed.
Yeah, it's not very clear. So I gotta repeat your question. So he's asking about Armenians and the association with the steppe ancestry, which seems to have shown up in the Bronze Age. And then Urartu is an Iron Age kingdom. It was conquered by Assyria during the Neo-Assyrian Empire. That's what I think so he immediately figured out the chronology is weird there. So that part of the paper is very, very confusing because steppe ancestry shows up and disappears. It shows up in certain areas and it's not present in other areas. So it shows up right next to Urartu, I think to the north and east of it, but it never gets into the Urartu zone.
That is a question related to the paper, bro. It's in the paper.
As far as Armenians, like the Hebrews, they're showing up.
There are people that are part of the Southern Arc.
Although they have legends that go back earlier. How far back does it go? I don't know. I was not very clear from the paper the connection between modern Armenians and the major Bronze Age pulse of Yamnaya people. On the other hand, there's a lot of detailed Y chromosomal analysis in the paper that I think this is mostly Yosef. Actually, I've talked to him. I know he does this. I think that Y chromosomal analysis that's tracing a particular R1b lineage, I think that's how he's connecting Armenians today, historical Armenians as well, Iron Age Armenians, because we have samples from there, to that Bronze Age population. But the fraction of steppe actually just declines monotonically, and I think it's because it was just a really small pulse in that wasn't replenished. In contrast to the Iranian steppe ancestry, which shows up, he claims after 1000 AD or BC, which could be plausible. Like the Neo-Assyrians mentioned clearly Iranian people after that period, but we also know Iranian steppe ancestry is present in Mitanni, Indo-Iranian, possibly Indo-Aryan, in small amounts. There's a woman who was thrown into a well, 1500, 1400 BC. She looks like she was an elite Mitanni person. She looks like she's pure Shintashta in Syria. And also, Narsiman et al. Show in Khorasan in northeastern Iran. The steppe ancestry shows up 2000 BC. So if Yosef is right, that takes 1,000 years to go across Iran. That's a little weird, but who knows? But anyway, with the Armenians, it's a very, very confusing part of the paper, and I'm not entirely convinced what's going on here. But basically, that whole area is very heterogeneous, and the steppe ancestry shows up, but it doesn't become overwhelmingly dominant like it does in other areas when it shows up. But I think Armenian is the Indo-European language that's there, and unlike the Iranian, it doesn't have a clear connection to corded ware. And so I think that's why he assumes that steppe ancestry that shows up in the Bronze Age was antecedent to the Armenians who we historically attest in that area in the Iron Age, even though Urartu itself is not Armenian and does not have steppe ancestry. Does that kind of answer your question? I mean, it seems like there had to have been, but again, you have to go into the provenance of their archaeological sampling. Like in a lot of these situations, if you have colonies, so Aspert was asking about, like, could Armenians have lived in Urartu? And I think it's obviously they would have, but the issue is if they're a foreign ethnos, they probably live in their own area. And what I would do, look, there's hundreds of pages of archaeological provenance, you'd have to go through that. That's what I would suggest to you. Okay, Aspert? I mean, if you're curious. All right, we're going to go to Clubhouse, I think. Is there anybody on Clubhouse? Dalit? Coley? Are you next on Clubhouse? All right, Dalit Coley, do you have a question? All right, I'm going to move you to the audience.
Hey, I have a question. Well, first of all, I'd like to say...
Is this Johnny?
Hey, yeah. I never thought I'd be sharing a stage on Von Neumann. In fact, my first name comes from his nickname. And bonus points if you can figure out who my second name comes from. But my question is, so these kinds of, 23andMe ancestry, they track, as far as I understand, like single nucleotide changes, and that's how all these haplogroups are assigned. I think they're in the Y chromosome or something. But how is this data calibrated? Like, if you look at a particular period of time, say today, and look at the distribution of all these mutations, then you might be able to have like a geographical mapping of them. But then when people start talking,
all right, I have to repeat this for Twitter Spaces. You got to be more concise, okay? So I'm just going to answer right now because you're asking about calibration. Okay, guys, if you're going to ask me a question, don't ask me like complicated nested questions because like I don't want to have to fucking repeat this. Okay, so on Twitter,
He said, "I don't want to have to fucking." This dude's a real fucking smug, man.
Okay, well, you know what?
I thought I was something.
You know what? No, you're not going to talk back. You know what? Like, kick that person. I'm going to answer his question, but kick him. Moderators, kick him. In any case, sorry, like you guys are assholes when I'm very clear that like I'm giving my time and these people are listening and like you decide that like you have to like go on. Like sorry, like kick that person.
Yeah.
In any case,
Abu, all I said was in regards to
a
JP58, and then boom, I was
doesn't know how to be concise, and I don't want to listen to all his thoughts. How do you calibrate haplogroups in terms of their time and their relatedness and all this stuff? Okay, there's a mutational clock assumption. So Y chromosomes are not the only haplogroups. There's also haplogroups on mitochondrial DNA. They have different mutational clocks. Mitochondrial is through women. Y chromosomes are through men. And so you assume that there's a constant mutation rate. Which
Johnny
is
Thompson called him a douchebag.
Who knows? And so you can like take a phylogeny, a tree of relatedness, have a constant mutation rate, and then do a coalescence back to the common ancestors. And then based on the mutation rate and the number of mutations that differ, you can calculate the number of generations. Now we have with ancient DNA, we actually have better calculations.
Yeah, I thought I was fucking bad.
So I can tell you that
I kind of respect him because I kind of fucking respect this dude, man, because he cusses motherfuckers out, man. It's my stilo.
500 BC. Okay, so if I do a calculation and it coalesces back to 2000 BC, I know that's wrong, and so my mutation rate is off or it's varied. I'm very, very wary of taking the coalescence and the mutation rates like at face value. You have to be very careful. There's big windows. Some of these things.
I told people that last year, and everybody was like, you pseudo. What he just said, I told everybody that last year.
Variable, to be honest, with high variance mutation rates. To SNPs, to single nucleotide polymorphisms, that mutate.
Darvis, how is this dude my enemy? I think he's like East Indian or something. How is he my enemy, man?
So I think that's the answer to the question to the dick who could not be concise. Let's see. Is there anybody else who wants? I don't think anybody has a question on Twitter Spaces. And
he about to shut this shit down.
Surya, you know tell me, and so you're going to be concise, right?
Oh yeah, I'll be concise.
Okay, so Surya's going to...
Oh yeah. So my question was, wait, how do you explain the Rig Spula or Rig Veda if you think caste was inherent to IBC?
Yeah, okay, so Surya asked a good question, and it's more of a semantic question because I think that semantic is the answer. So he said, how do you explain the Rig Veda if you think caste was endemic to IBC? So the Rig Veda, for non-Browns out there, is the oral history, holy text of Hindus, oral history of the early Indo-Aryans. So there's arguments about the Rig Veda and where it was composed and what it talks about. Some people have like a very South Asianist perspective, like, oh, it was in the 5 rivers of Punjab. Other people say, oh, it's actually the rivers in the Ural Mountains. Other people say it's in Afghanistan. So I suspect it's probably a pastiche. There's things in there that are very ancient. There's probably things in there from the Bactro-Mariana culture. Like Soma probably is from that. It's shared with the Iranians. And so how do you explain the Rig Veda if caste was IBC? One thing is, if the Rig Veda is mostly in South Asia and like the later parts,
Darvis, how the hell did East Indians steal our
they could have just adopted
identity?
it out, right? But the semantic answer is there's a difference between Jati and Varna. So Varna is Indo-European. So Varna, I think it translates to color, but it's like Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, whatever. And so these three in particular, these are the freeborn castes of the Indo-European folk, right? Folk of like, these wanderers. And the Saxons had the exact same thing. The early medieval Saxons, when they were pagan, they had the exact same thing. They had a priest caste, they had a warrior caste, and they had a farmer caste. And the main difference between Indians and non-Indians is Indians put the priest on top, and the non-Indians put the warriors on top. And Iranians have something similar. But the non-Indo-Europeans don't have Jati. So Jati are these communities, these endogamous communities, and they're kind of slotted into the Varna system. In South India, pretty much everybody who's not a Brahmin is actually not officially part of the Varna system, although some of them have been like grandfathered in. And so my argument is the Jati system existed. This endogamous community system existed, and we'll know when we get a lot of IBC ancient DNA someday. We'll know because what makes the Indian Jati system unique is extremely, extremely strong genetic differentiation, co-localized, and often class localized. And so I don't know when it's going to come out. I'm writing a piece about the fact that, like, look, when I first did analysis on Indian samples, I was shocked that Dalits in UP looked so much like Dalits in Tamil Nadu. Because, why would these two groups be genetically the same? They're in different parts of the subcontinent, thousands of years, blah, blah, blah. I have, like, no great explanation for this, but there's this, like, shocking amount of persistent stratification. Greg Clark actually would have a theory, because he claims that social status is actually, like, extremely stable over long periods of time in complex agricultural civilizations, but this is just off the chain in the subcontinent. And the Mycenaean example is, to me, is like the best comparison, because these steppe people show up maybe a little earlier than in the Indian subcontinent, but like not that far earlier, and it seems like they just mixed in, and their like elite status, like they just mixed into the population, and there's none of the stratification, right? Even though I think the Greeks themselves had some sort of like Varna-like system with hereditary priest families and stuff like that. I think Julius Caesar was actually, he was a patrician from the Julii, and only certain types of patrician could be like a Flavian Dialis, like a certain type of hereditary priest. So this stuff is like rife across Indo-Europeans. It's just that the endogamy and the encapsulation in communities is particularly Indian. It doesn't really happen too much outside of the Indian subcontinent. Iran might be a partial exception where the priestly lineages may have been endogamous, but it's hard to say because we have a lot of our sense of Zoroastrianism is driven by Parsis who are 25% genetically Gujarati and highly Indianized. Does that answer your question, Surya?
Oh yeah, wait, so like they coalesced, like the two systems like coalesced at some point, basically.
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool.
All
Wait,
right.
thanks for answering that. Yeah.
All right, it is 45 after. Let's see. I don't see anyone asking questions on Twitter Spaces right now, and I don't see anyone asking questions on the Clubhouse. So I think this is a good stopping point.
He want to get off.
So yeah, papers are in science. It doesn't look like. Look, I think the media is really obsessed about student loans right now. I don't see too much coverage of this stuff, but this stuff is super exciting. The data is there for you nerds out there who want to download it, so do it. If you want to listen to more of me talking about it, I'll talk to David Anthony. I'm going to talk to Nemitz, for those of you who know who he is. I'll probably try to get to Olander and another philologist on. I have some other stuff besides Indo-Europeans going on in September, but I think this is like a good topic of conversation. As far as like the ideological stuff, like I don't get it, obviously, but I think you guys should just ignore that. I think the Indo-European question, I think it's going to be answered within the next 10 years to the best of our abilities. We're never going to have time machines, right? Since we're never going to have time machines, we'll never totally know. I mean, I'm not.
I said that too.
About these correlations between languages and genes. And when I mean totally, I just mean like, you don't 100% know. Like think, but you don't 100% know.
Exactly. Thank you, Razib.
I think people just need to be a little bit more humble and a little bit more chilled out, and I think we're fine. So thanks for everyone. How many people are in Twitter Spaces?
Darvish, are you saying?
John,
what are you saying, Darvish?
I think Clubhouse is more than Twitter Spaces right now. So go Clubhouse. It's like anyway. It's like old times. All right. I'm kind of like tired. I might do a Clubhouse.
No, they do want to ask questions. People still trying to ask questions. They just not allowing it.
So this is Razib. You can find me on Twitter. Obviously, Razib Khan. If you want to see some of my stuff, go to razib.com. I put all of it. I write for Unheard. I've written a recent thing for Unheard. If you guys want to see, like, I might be reviewing Lord of the whole like Rings of Power series. For Unheard, because they might be sending me a preview of the season, so I'm excited about that. I'll probably hate it, but still. And then check out my Substack, razib.substack.com. There's gonna be some great content. There's gonna be some Indian stuff about caste that's in the works, some stuff about inbreeding coefficients and Targaryens that I'm working on, and just some other things. I don't think I'm gonna write up an essay about the Indo-European stuff, as I said, because it's pretty timely, and I like to write more evergreen stuff, but I might at some point, depending on if I feel it. My next Steppe series will be about Turks, just so people know. I am actually reading some stuff about the Turks, and I will write about the Turks. And so, maybe before 2023, we get to Genghis Khan. We'll see. Anyway.
I guess
Thank you, Dave. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Okay, thanks, everybody who asked, concise questions. And then thanks for everybody who listened. And, let me just see. I got a lot of...
Someone else is raising their hand.
Okay, well, we'll do one more person, I guess. One more person, KS. Let's see. Nope, I blocked you.
Nope, I blocked you.
Some people... Okay. KS, you can ask a question. This is the last question. I'm not gonna read all the private
chat.
All right. I'm sorry about that, Abel. You shouldn't have been removed.
Somebody said, please.
Don't just start talking at me and explaining stuff I know. Okay. I'll tell them it's a mistake. Error. Okay, yeah. Okay. All right, KS, ask the question. This is the last question. KS, ask.
Hi. Yeah. Hi. So I want to know who the ancient indigenous Iranians like Elamites, for example, are closest to in modern day populations.
Good question.
Yeah.
All right. So he wants to ask about the Elamites. So KS is asking about who the ancient indigenous Elamites are. If you don't know who the Elamites are, you're ignorant. Go to Wikipedia and read it. But so it's actually there are two major regions, Anshan and Elam. I believe Elam is closer. It's modern day Khuzestan. Anshan is more inland and south and east towards the Fars. It reaches out towards Balochistan. And so these Elam and Anshan are the great enemies of Sumer in the 3rd millennium BC. And Elam was ultimately conquered by the Assyrians, the Babylonians, in the 1st millennium. So they were around for a long time. They're not Indo-European, not Semitic. They're linguistic isolate. And the Persians, who are the people of Fars, actually are the ones that assimilated Elamite culture. And so a lot of Persian culture is actually Elamite culture. So Persians are obviously Iranians, but they're one particular Iranian tribe. They're one particular Iranian tribe that settled in the southwest of Iran. Persian itself has only expanded within the last like 1,500 years, really the last 1,000 years, north and east into Central Asia. It's traditionally the Iranian language of southwest Iran, southwest what became Persia, Fars. So the Elamites, we know them through Persians. There is actually a paper that argues that Elamite was spoken as late as the 9th to 10th century AD.
They were smoking?
In Susiana region, right in upland Khuzestan. And so who were these people genetically? We don't have Sumerian DNA, and we don't have Elamite DNA. I think what we're going to find with the Elamites is that they're probably...
Yeah, like Michael Jordan did Chameleon. Yeah, he pretty much did that. He did me like that. I got 3 words out and then got booted.
So I think maybe the reason KS is asking is there is some suggestion they would have some connection with the people of the IBC. I think that's possible, but they are in the southern Zagros, so probably not. Basically, I think I haven't read the article, but I think Elamite might have deciphered. Elamite came in multiple different scripts. They might have deciphered a new script, and so there's a lot of Elamite that we can now read. But it doesn't look like Elamite is related to the Dravidian languages, although some people have tried to make that connection. So they're probably one of
what they got to do with the Southern Ark
of the Near East that eventually got swallowed
or that
up
paper on the
by
Southern Ark, rather.
Turkic, and Semitic. You know, they're linguistic isolate in the Indian subcontinent. You have Barusho, you have stuff like that. And you had a lot of isolates in the
But then again, he's probably biased because that's his.
Are we gonna have ancient DNA?
That's around his.
Iran is kind of an isolated nation,
place of origin.
Islamic Republic. There's not that much ancient DNA work. I think it's kind of a pain in the ass. Iraq, we the Americans destroyed that country 20 years ago, so it's been really difficult to get stuff out. You guys might have remembered the ISIS time and all this stuff. People don't want to get kidnapped. So I've heard that some people are trying to work on Sumerian DNA.
Really?
Hey, I've been waiting for a long time. I'm a big Sumerian fan.
We're finally going to see Sumerian DNA?
I'm curious about what's going on there. But I think that's my answer to that question. And I think with that, I am going to close Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces. Thank you for listening to me on this Friday night. Everybody out there, go party, do your thing, have fun. Enjoy the night, and I will see you around.
Damn. So I'm on the.
In LTTE, is that like the same as the Elamites? The Elam there, or is it supposed to be? Is it like?
He asked another question. I don't think Razib knows how to close it because he's on.
So someone said Saddam Hussein in the chat. In the chat. No, Saddam Hussein. People are arguing about Saddam Hussein now after your Iraq point.
Oh, Razib Khan just left. He didn't even close the room.
I guess I was in the room. Oh, yeah, actually, no, we'll invite John H. What's up?
Nobody want to hear John H.
Yeah, so is there a connection between the Elam from LTTE and this Elamite ancient people in Iran, or just the people running the LTTE think there's a?
Oh, he finally learned how to end it. He didn't even say that. He just came back and ended the room. Yeah, he is haplogroup R. He's R1A. Yeah, man. Razib did me dirty. That dude's a dick. Like, he's a dick, man. What the hell? I was like, in regards to JP58, boom. I am not a haplogroup consultant. It was something like that. He said, I was like, yo, like, really, bro? I was speaking in regards to the paper because I wanted him to say something that people need to hear him say, but I wasn't able to get the question out about what area they emanate from and what people they closely relate to. Wasn't able to get all my words out because he's gonna bring up those Caucasus hunter gatherers, just like the paper says. That dude was a straight dick, boy. It is what it is. Darvis said some crazy stuff, man, but I didn't want to really talk over him. I want y'all to hear him. But Darvis said, because the real East Indians look like you, these people came about through experiments after we went to war with each other. They took your... God damn, Darvis. Hey, but Razib did say a few key points. He talked about correlations of ages. When you see TMRCA, don't take that as face value because, pretty much the intervals gaps are large. Same thing Ibrahim Mutazer said. I mean, these geneticists are saying it. Like, if you read a standard geneticist or a book on genomic data, it's going to tell you that. He also said we won't know these things definitively 100% without time machines. And I keep telling people that, man, that you just have to make proxies and hypotheses and then argue your hypothesis, find supporting evidence. And I've been saying shit like that to people, but you won't believe it unless one of them say it. Right now, I don't know. I don't know about all that. I need to be told a lie by a liar. Who's a liar, Darvis? Who's the liar? Who am I being lied to by? Are you saying that dude, Rob Z. Khan's a liar? Why would he be a liar? He a dickhead, but he ain't a liar. I have no reason. You know what the word lie means? Lie means to purposely deceive. Can you prove that he purposely deceived anybody at any time? I'm pretty sure you had children. I'm pretty sure they knew, like, did y'all eat the cookies? And then they said no, knowing damn well they ate the cookies, then that's a lie. Because they purposely tried to deceive you. You got to explain simple words like that to people because we what's the word for it? Misappropriate a lot of terms, right? We hear something that we don't like, or we hear a perspective that we don't like, and then we automatically assume someone is lying. Oh, that person lied. Oh, he's a liar. No, he just got a different perspective. Now you can say, oh, he's spreading misinformation, he's misinformed, or he's misinforming people. That's a different state. That's a different word. He be just talking moon rock shit. Well, Doris, you have to prove that someone lied. That's like, again, to lie means to purposely deceive. I know, right? Like, why bother? Darvis, if he told you the history of India, you wouldn't believe him. If he told you, if he gave all the resources that he had, you wouldn't believe him. You would say, no, that's not according to, you know, this over here. You know, they had a war. Ancient aliens came down and invaded and made white people. So I don't think you're moving from your square, no matter how much information is presented. But all right, I'm gonna get off of here, y'all. I'm asking too much of Darvis. Darvis got a show tomorrow, man. I promised him a show. But yeah, let me log off and get ready to go to bed. Well, I guess I'm not a Hebrew Israelite, Darvis. I guess not, because I'm not saying what you're saying. I guess I'm none of those things, right? I don't fit the bill, Darvis. But get all your information together. Tomorrow, I'm going to let you have your own show and speak uninterrupted, man. You're going to have your own little show. You're going to be able to preach your gospel to the people. Sean said, marvelous Darvis. It's a pack. Oh, man. Y'all funny. Stay in school, Darvis, man. Or go back to school, man. You're never too old to go back to school, brother. You're never too old to go back to school. You know what I'm saying? We push education here. We support education on this channel, and we try to fight against illiteracy in the Black American community. Right? So with that being stated, you know what I'm saying? Support education, read more, learn more, get a grasp. Like the scriptures say, and all I getting, getteth understanding, right? So I'm a firm believer in that. A firm believer and a promoter of science and education. All right, Darvis. So I'll see you tomorrow, man. We'll see Darvis tomorrow, and let him indoctrinate. I mean, teach you guys. All right. No, I don't think science equals truth, Darvis. I don't think science equals truth. I don't have that dogmatic mindset that we can give a approximation to truth. That doesn't mean anything equals truth. We can only give approximation. All right, Darvis. No, bro, you need to go back to school though. You need to go to another, like, get a 4 degree or something. You know what I'm saying? Get an undergrad. He said, so science is a bunch of guesses. Yes, it is. It is a bunch of guesses. The field of science is a bunch of guesses. So what you're going to do is follow it up with, oh, well, then, you know, I ain't got to guess. I don't do no guessing. I just know. Oh, man. I just know. I'm 100% on everything. That's what people mean when they try to question science. Like, oh, it's just about, it is. Even Razib Khan says science isn't truth, but it's a method to try to find truth. Man, He said you need to start from scratch. Hey, Darius, we want you to go to school, man. Go to school, brother.
Try to be the best you can be. I love school. Whatever you do, stay in school. I love school. Stay in school. I want to be the best I can be. You can do it. I want to be the best I can be. I know you can do it. When I wake up early in the morning, I say, ooh. I can't wait to get there to see all my friends, the principal and teachers too. Oh, yeah. I love school. Stay in school. I love school. Whatever you do, stay in school. I love school. I got to be the best I can be. I got to be the best I can be. Yeah. Ooh, it's so exciting to learn something new. But in this fancy day, I go smarter. I'm inspired to work harder and harder. I'm soaring higher, higher. I'm reaching the heights. My future is getting brighter. And as I grow older, I will soon discover that your education is the key to life. Oh, I love school. Please stay in school. I love school. I love school. Whatever you do, please stay in school. I want to be the best I can be. So you can do that. To be the best I can be. I know you can do that. I love school. So I love school. I love school. I love school. You can love it. I love school. Just wake up every day in the morning. Your education is so important. Your education is so important. Your education is so important. Yes, it is. Be the light, yeah. Stay in school. Whatever you do, just stay in school. Nadia. Yes. Do you love going to school? Yes. Do you want to be the best you can be? Yes. Do you believe that someday your education will be the key to your life? Yes. Tell me what you want to be. A doctor. What else you think? A star. Really? Yes. You know, if you stay in school, I believe you can